Well, hello everyone. Good evening. Happy Labor Day to everybody out there. I hope everybody's having a great day laboring, whatever you do on Labor Day. Are you supposed to not work or work? I don't understand. They get the day off, but I don't know. Maybe work in the yard. Who knows? But yeah, it's the 7th of September, and I have an amazing guest here. I want to just go right into it. My guest tonight has been seen at the prestigious Just for Laughs Comedy Festival in Montreal, Comedy Central's premium blend, and has a stand-up special on Comedy Central entitled "Comedy Central Presents Josh Sneed." Recently, he's released a dry bar comedy special, which has countless millions of views online. We'll talk about that as well. Please welcome to the check drop, Mr. Josh Sneed. Hello,
Hello, Chuck.
Josh.
Hey,
How are you?
buddy.
How are you,
I'm great.
man?
I'm so good. How are you?
Oh man, it was a golf day. You can tell I got my Tiger Red on, and I'm
Your
representing
victory
my
red.
my
Yeah.
Summit hat, and I didn't win shit today, but hey, I had a great time. I,
Yeah, you
I,
got some sun,
yeah,
clearly.
yeah, son, and yeah, I wasn't laboring. I mean, actually, me and my partner were laboring over some tough golf today, but other than that, it's all good. So
I look
yeah,
like I'm in the moonlight at a campfire or something. I don't know what's up. Maybe I need to get outside and play some golf.
where are you?
Look
You
like
trapped? You trapped in your basement? You said.
I've been trapped in the basement since March, afraid to go upstairs. I hear children running around that are been told are mine, but it's it's so weird, man. It's so weird to be home this long. You know how comics are. We get cooped up and we need to get out there. But in a weird way, I've enjoyed it because
Yeah.
like sports were canceled for my kids, so it wasn't like one of the normal off weeks from comedy where I'm home, but I got a million house projects to do, and then I'm driving my son to baseball or soccer practice. It's like I'm home, everything's done, no practice to get to. It's been rare, but it's been very nice.
Yeah. So have you done zero stand up comedy since February, March, or
I've
have you?
done two shows. I've done Lexington in July. I did two nights. The first shows that the club had done since March, and they were getting ready to do a bunch of shows coming up. And I think that the club owner wanted to just get a couple shows under his belt with the new format and the social distancing and everything. And so I volunteered to go down there and do it for a couple shows.
So
But it was good. Shake the rust off a little bit,
I, I was that was my question. How rusty were you? Did you mess up your jokes, or I mean, or was it kind of like riding a bike that you just jump right back in, or?
After a while, it felt like riding a bike, but for sure, when I first got up there, it was weird. It was like, so what do you guys want to talk about? But I did, I had written a couple things. I didn't want it just to be all, COVID material. So it was good. I got to try out some new jokes. I got to dust off some of the old ones and see people again and get that sort of adrenaline that we get when we hear laughs from an audience, and it's nice. I think it'll hold me over until things start to get back to somewhat normal.
It's funny. I'm on the same brainwave as you because I was just thinking like, did you go back in and feel like you had to talk about it, like the elephant in the room, or is it did you talk about it at all, like just to kind of touch on the aspect of like, oh, we're all in this together, but you don't want to dwell on the fact that hey, we're all in this shitstorm and we don't want to talk about it anymore. Like we just want to go out and laugh and you want to entertain and you want to go out and work and everybody else just wants to go out and not worry about all the shit that they've been dealing with since March.
Yeah, I mean that's how I approached it. Just sort of like a somewhere in between what you just said, where it's like I know we're all thinking it. Let's talk about it to tell each other that we've all gone through the exact same things and we're thinking the same things. And here's some funny stories that have happened during it, but it's not going to be the only thing we talk about.
Yeah.
It's not
How
like
about
politics where if you bring it up at all, you're going to alienate half the room. It's like there's a common ground, like we're all getting used to being back out in public. I'm looking at all of you with masks on. I have no idea if you're smiling, your laughs are muffled. So I don't know exactly how I'm doing. I actually got to go to a couple of the shows that Dave Chappelle is doing up in Yellow Springs,
oh, nice.
and on the same show it was Dave Chappelle, my buddy Mo Amir, Donnell Rollins, Michelle Wolf, Brian Regan, and Bill Burr.
Jesus
And
Christ.
they are
What a lineup.
in a field. Everyone is wearing masks. So you're outdoors. You can't hear the laughs. People are wearing masks, so you can't even see facial expressions. I mean, you're talking about some of the best comics that have ever lived. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
they probably have the confidence of doing their material, but man, not getting that feedback, that immediate feedback that I know a lot of comics need, even for somebody like that, it had to be super hard.
Is going on that show, are they doing that every weekend now?
Yeah, they've been doing it most like Wednesday or Thursday through Sundays. He's had David Letterman, he's had Chris Rock, Kevin Hart, he's had Jon Stewart show up, Michael Shea. I mean, it's been a who's who up there, and Dave is just the MC, which if that tells you anything.
Yeah.
I would go if it was just Dave, but
Yeah. So was it hard for you to get that ticket? You said you've been
um,
twice, right? Right.
yeah, I called in a favor to get the first one, and then when I found out a friend of mine is one of the openers who's been living up there with Dave for the summer, I was, once we got in contact with each other again because we've known each other for a long time, he was like, "Yeah, come on back up." So we actually printed some T-shirts for him to sell up there, and drove him up and hung out for the show. And like I said, I mean, Bill Burr, Brian Regan, and Dave Chappelle are three of my four Mount Rushmore of comedy faces. So, like, to see three of them on the same show was insane.
Wow. That's that's crazy. What were the tickets for that?
The
Oh,
tickets,
you probably had a comp, but
I had a hookup, but the tickets are $225 a piece. But
okay.
it's the only comedy show, like, basically going on in the world, and it's
Right.
like the top comedians. So, like, they have no trouble selling it out. It's this big open field next to a Christmas tree farm,
Okay.
and
Is
there's
it
like
near Dave's house? Like,
yeah, Yellow
okay.
Springs, Ohio.
All right.
And he's filming everything. I don't believe that it's for Netflix. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's where it ended up, but there's signs that say there's filming in progress, and it's a really cool setup. There's like this gazebo where they do the shows from the steps of the gazebo. There's a couple people in the audience kind of sitting behind, and then everyone else is out in this field. There's two chairs, and a circle painted in the grass, and then 6-7 feet away there's the next circle with two chairs, and they're all spaced out through the field, and they've got a food truck and a restrooms, and I mean, it's a really cool setup, and they're taking temperatures when you get there to make sure that you don't have any symptoms. And man, you have to have your mask on the whole time. They lock your phone up in a bag so you can't take pictures or record, and they
Yeah,
kind of
those
want you to,
yonder pouches. I
yeah,
was wondering if they were
which
doing that.
like I always thought, and probably the real reason is comics just don't want their stuff being filmed. But the reason that they say is that they want people to just have an experience. And I do feel like there's some truth to that, of like knowing you can't look down at your phone, and you kind of immerse yourself in the
Yeah.
moment for a few
Don't take
minutes.
yourself out of that scenario. Like
Yeah,
live in the moment. So, and then that's a great moment. I mean, if you're scrolling your Instagram while all those, like you've mentioned, those marquee comedians are on, you should not be there at that
right.
show. I mean, give it to somebody that's like a true comedy fan. So,
That's right.
yeah, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm a little jealous of
But
that.
and also, like, and it sounds corny, but it's true. Like, I like that I could be 22 years into doing stand up and still get excited to watch a comedy show that I'm not going to be on the stage for. Like, I think a lot of comics, after a certain amount of time, especially as long as some of us have been in the business, get sort of jaded on the things that make us laugh, or we start to look at it as more of like a job. And I'm sure it was the comedians on the show, and probably a little bit of going so long without doing comedy, but like just being there, watching it, knowing I wasn't going to be going up, I was so excited just as a fan of stand up. And it's nice that this long into my career, I can still sort of feel that way.
Yeah, I saw where I saw on Instagram yesterday. You know Marshall Childs from
Yeah, yeah,
Laughing
Atlanta.
Skull. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess he went this weekend, but he had even a bigger hookup because I guess they were all hanging out. So a big group of the comedians and I guess Helm and some other people, they all went tubing together. So
Yeah.
imagine taking it one step further. Now you're tubing down a river with all those comedians and or
Right.
whoever, and you're like, man, I just responded to Marshall like, man, who books that one? Who books that gig? I mean,
Yeah, they said that that some of these guys, like these New York and LA guys that, have never really spent any time in the woods or anything, are just absolutely loving it. And, there's been some pretty big names of people that have just come to hang out. But can you imagine, like, if you didn't know that was going on and you're just fishing on the bank of a river in Ohio, and here comes Questlove, the drummer for the Roots and the Tonight Show, just down the river on a canoe. It would just be
right.
so, it'd be so surreal.
Yeah, I mean, and then just one by one, like you'd probably see that first one first, whoever that was, like, hey, that looks a little like Bill Burr or
Yeah.
whatever, and you're like, huh? It's like, wait, that looks like Dave Chappelle. Wait, there's a theme going on here.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh man. So all right. So you've done a couple clubs now. How have you jumped into the Zoom comedy at all? Have you done any of that?
I have not. I just I don't know, man. Like I was saying, I'm the kind of comic, I need that interaction. I need that sort of atmosphere that like a live comedy show provides. And to not have that, I don't know if I like to really work on timing and stuff. And I don't know if I wouldn't get that because I don't have that feedback of like when to give that next line or that next tag. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it would go okay, but for me, it's like a hard pass until
Yeah. Well,
we get to live shows again. And the
it
people who can do it are doing it great. I'm not knocking that,
oh,
and I'm jealous
absolutely.
of them.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I have a list of, I always try to pitch you for like corporate events and colleges and such, for the work perspective as me being an agent. But now I have certain ones that I put in little brackets next to it, go, not available for virtual shows. And I knew you were one of the ones that are like, all right, I'm just taking a hard pass. And it's fine because, it works for some, works for others. I've got people that don't want to fly places. And they're like, listen,
Yeah,
I just don't want to go out. I've had people cancel and say, hey, I just can't do this gig. I know this. I mean, because some places are still doing live events, obviously. And they're like, I just don't want to go. I want to, just take the year off. And if you have other forms of income and such, obviously that's great, but not every comedian has that under their belt. So, and you're
yeah,
lucky you've got other avenues where you make money. You own a t-shirt company called Cincy Shirts, correct?
yeah. We have a couple different websites. That's our biggest one. It's a lot of Cincinnati, obviously themed apparel. We have two brick and mortar stores here in Cincinnati. And we have old school shirts, which is similar to Cincy shirts, but it's other cities, so people can look at other cities and find like old vintage designs of bars, restaurants, nightclubs, amusement parks, whatever, old sports teams from those cities. We have one called Fluffy Crate, which is funny pop culture references. That's where we print a lot of stuff for my comedian friends and podcasts, and people can go on there and find like their sort of going out t-shirts. And then we just launched a new brand this year called In the Clutch, which is all current sports stars. We were able to get a Major League Baseball Players Association license, a Major League Soccer Players Association license. We have some
Nice.
NCAA schools, so that's been fun to launch an all sports themed website in a year that
Yeah.
has not had sports up until just like the last month. But it was challenging for sure to have these
Well,
cool licenses.
has the t-shirt company taken a hit, or has it been pretty status quo? Or has it gone up like during this time? Now that people
It's
are just kind of sitting at home, maybe just wanting to buy things online.
it's actually the latter. It's actually been a really good year for us, luckily. I think here locally, because our brand is a lot bigger here locally, and we've had these stores open for several years now, people were able to see the quality of our shirts and kind of know how they fit. And so I think that made it easier for people to order from us online. I know like my wife, especially, like if she's ordering clothes, she's like, I don't know how this is going to fit and what size I need. And I think we've developed a reputation here locally of having like a quality product that people know what they're going to get when they buy from us, and it makes it easier to buy it online.
Right. And I can
And
attest, I've now purchased 3 shirts from Cincy Shirts.
eh,
Two just during the COVID time. I,
what?
true story. You had the one. It was the Unity. It was the
Oh
heart
yeah.
with the white hand and black hand doing that, and that was
Yep.
awesome. I got that, and then I got the social distancing golf shirt that you guys have. So yeah, and they fit great and they feel awesome. So
Thank you,
there's a
Chuck. You're
little
not
plug.
supposed to buy stuff. You're supposed to tell me you want
It's
that
all
stuff.
right. It's I'm a supporter, So yeah. So comedian Dougie Almeida says here, how important is it for working comics today to have a multiple revenue streams? I mean,
So, yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
I mean, shit. I can for sure answer that. I think it's always good to have obviously those open options. With just because you don't put all your eggs in one basket per se. That'd be like me just booking one division of say colleges, and I've always kind of diversified like where to book my entertainment. I mean, I always joked with there's a company called the College Agency, and I was like, why did you name your company the College Agency? Like you're very stuck in just booking that. Nothing against those people; they're really fine people, but they kind of already box themselves in just with the title. So things like
Yeah.
that, and I feel like obviously now and during COVID, this was the perfect slap in your face of don't have all your eggs in one basket. You got to diversify, and that's perfect that you have those other revenue streams. And there's other comedians I know that have different side hustles and such that might have been just more of a side gig before, but now it's like, oh wait, now my side is now my top priority, just because
Yeah.
you can't do this. And I know we talked before we went live about like I feel like the country is opening up a little bit more, and I guess slowly but surely, but yeah. So yeah, so you can answer that as well if you'd like, on
Well,
your thoughts.
I wanted to hear your answer because, as somebody who makes his living booking comedians, you probably don't love that they can make money elsewhere. Uh, you know,
Right. Well,
I didn't.
I did adapt to the virtual comedy aspect, and so once I wrapped my brain around that, I mean, and other people in the business will tell you, I was very vocal, saying I ain't doing shit. I said I'll take a pass, and I was like you, like I'm not doing it. I mean, kudos for the other people that are. I just didn't. I just wanted to take a pass, and unfortunately, after 3-4 months, you're like, oh wait, I don't care how much money you saved up or whatever you have in your nest egg. If you don't see any kind of light at the end of the tunnel, hey, maybe it's time to start switching things up. So, and I did that.
Yeah.
And there's lots of people that are doing virtual comedy, the corporate market, because we are all in the same boat. People still need to be entertained and engage their either employees or colleges need to engage their students. If they're not doing it live, they are doing it virtual. So, and nobody said this is the best thing ever. I mean, because I think we all know that it's a subpar product. It's nothing's going to take away the experience of a live band or a comedian. So but I think everybody knows that going into it. And if you can have a solid B show, I mean, it's working. It's working. I
Yeah.
mean, and I hate to sell it that way, but it is just that. I think everybody knows that it is what it is. So
Yeah. And it wasn't like I started this t-shirt company with my buddy going, you know what, if there's a global pandemic one day, I'm going to be really glad that I did this. For me, it was, I mean, we've had the t-shirt company in some form for over 15 years now. And for me, it was when I first started doing stand up, I met a lot of these comics who had been on the road forever, like they'd come up through the ranks to headliner and they may have had like a really solid career at some point, and then they have, like a sort of steady decline on the backside of their career, but they were still taking whatever money they could at terrible gigs because that's all they knew. And I would meet comics that were divorced, that didn't have relationships with their children, and and I know people have different circumstances, but at the time I thought, you know what, if I could just start something that could sort of grow in its own time. It doesn't have to be successful right now, but in 10 years, 15 years, I could be at a point where maybe I'm married, maybe I have children, or maybe I just want to still love doing comedy and I'm doing it because I want to and not because I have to, then that can sort of take its time to grow and reach a point like where luckily I'm at today, where it's like comedy is still fun for me because it's not something that I have to do, and it's really benefited me this year. Which I didn't see coming for that reason. But I tell young comics all the time, like, do something else. Like, it doesn't have to be another job. It's not. Don't have another side job of like, serving just to have extra money. Like take your energy, find something that you like to do, something that will take time to grow and let it grow on its own, not something that you'll abandon with if it doesn't hit right away. And I've been lucky that that worked out for me, and this year especially I'm really thankful for it.
Right, and it's kind of like finding that happy place, right? I mean, obviously, your stand up is obviously, you that's your happy place on stage and such, as far as your work wise, and if you can find those other streams of income that it's still that are fun. Mention your social media, like you got another pretty nice gig from your stand up, so it's just kind of a
Yeah.
springboard from that, right? So talk about that to the masses.
So this was not one that I planned on. It just sort of fell in my lap. But about 7 years ago, um, I get a message from someone telling me to check my LinkedIn. So all you comics that have a LinkedIn profile, check it once in a while. You can learn from this. I had not checked it in forever, but that's how someone reached out to me, and she worked for a candy company based here in the Cincinnati area, northern Kentucky, called Perfetti Van Mel. They make Airheads candy, and they also make Mentos. And she said, I work for Airheads. I started their social media, and I am not feeling this as a second job. It basically like doubled her workload. So they were looking for a comedian to take over their social media, just someone that can be funny online when interacting with fans of Airheads. And so she said, I really like how you do your social media for your t-shirt company, and my husband is a fan of your stand-up, and you're local, so you're the first person I reached out to. So I
On
felt
LinkedIn.
on LinkedIn, yeah. And so she said, "Do you want to do it?" She said, and I said, "Well, I travel a lot, and I do a lot of stand-up. I'm on their own." She says, "You can do it from anywhere." So I decided to give it a try, and I really liked it. I was on social media anyway, and
Right.
I know how to be clean, on social media. So I had fun coming up with content for Airheads and interacting with the different people on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And then a couple months later, it was going good enough that they offered me Mentos as well. So for 7 years now, I've been the anonymous voice of Airheads and Mentos on their social media channels. And it's something I do every day, 365 days a year, no days off. But I log in and I see what people are talking about, and I respond when they need it. And it was a skill set that I kind of didn't realize I had just from doing my social media for my stand up, but it was certainly something that I was capable of, and man, it's been a godsend to me.
Yeah. Were you hesitant at all, like at out of the gate, like, oh wait, like to try and be funny under a corporate brand? You know how to be funny for yourself because there's no, I guess there's nobody looking over your shoulder per se. It's
Right.
just, hey, I can say whatever I want. This is my brand. This is my company. Did you feel any kind of hesitation of like, shit, how am I going to be funny for the? How can I make Airheads or like funny? Did you?
Well, what I found is that, and you know this, like, um, coming up with like a pun or a one-liner for a brand that it's not sort of in their wheelhouse to do. They're just like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. Like, they're good at like creating advertising or coming up with the product or the packaging. But once I sort of figured out the voice, like the right tone, and the brands, they're so amazing to work with. All the people there, and even from the very beginning, and that was the case. And they would give me lots of notes of like, okay, this is Airhead sense of humor. It's like these things, and it's not these things. And just given those those few notes, I was able to sort of get in the right tone of like, this is the audience that I'm trying to talk to. It's more children than it is, Mentos, which has an older audience of people who sort of romanticize about the popular commercials from the 90s,
Yeah.
and I'm able to take a little bit more risks on the Mentos in terms of, snarky or satire, or, being sarcastic. And once I figured that out, it's like comedy. It's like going to the gym, doing it every single day. You end up getting good at it, and you don't think about it as much. And I've really enjoyed it. It's like the t-shirts. It's like a different part of my brain than what the jokes I write for the stage. Like the t-shirt stuff it's got to be very visual and something that makes sense when you look at it. And then the social media stuff is stuff that makes sense when you read it. And then the comedy stuff makes you laugh when you hear it. And it's like the three of those are things that I really enjoy, like doing all of those, on a somewhat daily basis.
Have you ever had your wrist slapped? Like, did you ever cross the line at any point in time? Like, you get called to the principal's office at all and go, you know what, this one might have been a little bit over our company policy line. Have you had any of those?
Well, in the beginning, and this is getting really nerdy social media talk, but in the beginning, like Facebook, if you had a lot of followers on your page, whether it was a comedy page or a brand, and you posted something, like Facebook would show it to anybody that liked your page. And then after a while, Facebook is like, man, we should be charging companies for this. And now they'll show it to like 0.5% of the people who like your page. And if you want the rest of them to see it, you got to spend money. So
Right.
once Facebook switched to that, the brands didn't do so much original content. It became more of a, let's just respond to people who are already talking to us or about us. But whenever I was doing the original content, it was never stuff that I posted that didn't get approved before I posted it. So I would put stuff out there for the brand to see, and they would say, we can't use this, or we can't say that, or you can't do a Star Wars parody, or whatever it is. And it would never see the light of day. But there was never anything that got posted that would have gotten me in trouble, because someone on the brand would have had to have approved it before it got there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a perfect example for comedians that are watching hey, maybe reach out, do some research on some companies that don't have much social media presence, and that, hey, and you can go punch up some of their stuff. I mean, I'm sure you can just get a list of the Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 1000 and go through and look at all their social media. That's a really good idea to just go do that and say, if you have an Instagram account and they haven't posted anything in 6 months, those are the people. Maybe, hey, reach out and say, hey,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because what I found is like what they'll pay someone to do the job, what they'll pay one person is like a fraction of what it would cost to pay an agency to handle it. So it could be really good money to a comedian, but it seems like a really good value to the brand,
Yeah.
because of what it would cost to go somewhere else if they're just dealing with like sort of like a contractor, one person. And you can look across social media and find, like the Wendy's, the Denny's. Like there's a bunch of like social media brands that are like really funny online. And
Yeah.
I think it's really cool that Airheads and Mentos sort of had that foresight. They were basically saying, if you go look at a lot of these brands, they're always just serving you an ad. They're the exact same kind of content you'd see in a magazine or in the side column when you're browsing a website. And they're like, we want it to be obvious that there is a person reading this and responding to it. And so that's what I try to do when I'm responding to people, is like, let someone know this wasn't a copy and paste response from a sheet that the company gave me. This is like, I read it and I'm responding directly to you. And I think that brands know that they'll get a really good return on their investment when they have that kind of interaction with their customers in their social media.
Yeah, nice. I have a two-part question. One is, do you have to make a post every day for these accounts, or just reply to somebody every day? Any kind of or both?
So on Twitter, I'm giving away all my secrets, Chuck. All right,
Sorry, man.
I was gonna put this in a
I,
class.
I'm a deep dive interviewer here in my in
Um,
my 13 weeks of doing this podcast.
well, so like on Facebook, for example, you don't you can't see if someone talks about Airheads, right? You can't see that unless they tag Airheads. Like you can't see people's personal pages, right? And then on Instagram, you can't put links and comments. You can search for hashtags. It's a little bit easier. But Twitter is the best place to really get interaction with people, make it more sort of conversational because what they tweeted was public, your response is public. So people who don't know either of you or only know one of you can read the entire thread if there's a back and forth. And you can go out and be proactive in finding people who may be talking about your brand, but not to your brand. So that's what I do every single day for Airheads and Mentos is on Twitter. I go out and look for people that are talking about both of the brands or talking about mints or bad breath or, maybe even sometimes the competitors of the brands. And I try to interject the brand into those conversations. And you find that a lot of people who they like when a brand they've heard of like quotes their tweet or replies to their tweet,
Yeah,
and
even if it's something simple as a candy,
yeah.
like I mean, it's like, hey, I'll keep eating those candies. They replied.
Yeah,
So,
so my best story is from Airheads. So Alvin Kamara, if you're a football fan, he's a running back for the Saints. He got drafted 4 years ago, 3 years ago, second or third round by the Saints out of Tennessee. And one of his coaches from Tennessee thanked him on Twitter saying, "Congratulations, thanks for being a great player for me. Airheads are on you." That's all it said. And he posted a picture of Alvin handing him an Airhead. And so the brand likes when they see, celebrities or entertainers or athletes talk
of
about the
course,
product.
yeah,
We want to send them product,
that's
right?
a free plug right there.
That's right.
That's
So
marketing 101.
that's exactly right. And I'd never heard of Alvin Kamara. He was not on my radar. Um, and so I tweeted out, this was in whenever the draft is, May of that year. And I tweeted out, congrats on getting drafted. Let us know if you'd like an Airheads care package. And usually if they're interested, they'll respond right away. They send us their home address and we, send them a big box of product. And that's kind of where it ends. Well, months go by,
You
no
checked your
response.
LinkedIn and he sent you a
I checked
LinkedIn.
my LinkedIn. That's right. And months go by, don't hear anything. And then out of nowhere, like maybe third week of the season, second week of the season, he says, "Airheads, I don't know how I missed this. I'd love a care package." And before I could even respond to it, Mark Ingram, who was the Pro Bowl Heisman Trophy winner out of Alabama, the starting star back for the Saints at the time, tagged onto that. You better get some Airheads bites for the running backs room. So that was what really got my attention was like this Mark Ingram with like a huge following. We need to hook these guys up. And so I told the brand, I said, let's not try to send it to their house. Let's send it right to the Saints facility. So we packaged up a crate. I mean, like a crate of product and shipped it directly to the Saints clubhouse. And the next week, Alvin Kamara posts pictures of him sitting on a throne made out of Airheads.
That's awesome.
And it was like, oh, that was really cool, And then like a week later, the beat writer for the Saints says my favorite thing that I saw this week was Alvin Kamara passing out Airheads to the linemen. So he had scored a touchdown in Buffalo, and then he gave them an Airheads bar on the sideline during the game as a thank you for blocking for him to let him score a touchdown, right? So
So it
he
just keeps
takes,
trickling.
dude,
Like,
it's
just,
insane. It gets better. So he takes off, right? Now he's like returning kicks for touchdowns. He's like the lead candidate for rookie of the year, and he wasn't hardly getting any playing time before this.
it's
Now
all because of
he
the Airheads.
all because of the Airheads, and we tweeted out like, wonder what the difference was, And he was very playful on the social media. ESPN and Sports Illustrated did a huge story on him, talked about his love for Airheads, and he said, it's the one brand that reached out to him before anybody knew who he was, and it was his favorite candy as a kid, so it meant a lot to him. Then he becomes rookie of the year. He's passing out Airheads in the playoffs, like on national TV, and Joe Buck's talking about it, and Aaron Andrews is talking about it. And now he's got his own flavor Airheads bar, and it all started with just one random tweet that I sent out to him. And then you fast forward to this day, he's got commercials for Airheads and everything. And that's the kind of stuff that can happen with social media that is like really cool for me.
Yeah, and I'm sure the person that hired you through LinkedIn is like, I'm glad I found this guy.
She's not with the company anymore, but
Well,
I hope
say
they
this
still like
this
me.
Josh Sneed guy's working out pretty good for us. Yeah. So let that be a
Great.
lesson to any corporate heads out there. Like maybe you should hire a comedian for this, and you can do it through
Right.
summitcomedy.com. Just call me.
Yeah, call Chuck.
I'll broker
Yeah,
this deal. I'll do
absolutely.
anything these days.
There you go.
So, cool, man. Well, let's pivot. I want to pivot a little bit. There's a story about your family background that I want to just ask about because I was a huge Star Wars nerd growing up, and your dad was in the Star Wars business back in the '70s, correct?
That's right. He worked for Kenner Toy.
Yeah, tell us a story about that. Like, if you do have a story, I just remember. I don't think we've ever talked about it. I just know that they're a huge Star Wars fan yourself, and
I was looking for this book.
That your dad obviously was a part of that growing up.
One second. Hold on.
Yeah, I'll keep talking. So yeah, so back in what I think it was 76 or 77 when Star Wars came out. I think.
Yeah.
I was
77.
I was born in 72. So, I mean, that was just right at the peak for me, like starting to collect the Star Wars figures and stuff. And then I remember hearing your story later on that your dad worked for them. I'm like, oh man, how cool was that shit? Like for you, it must've been when you were growing up probably telling all your friends and such. They probably didn't believe you.
So. Yeah, it was, well, they believed me. That's why I got invited to the parties because they knew that they were going to get a toy if I showed up. So, yeah, he was in the Navy. He was a machinist, and then he was working for Ford. And then Kenner was hiring a bunch of model makers. That's what my dad did. So basically, people would give him a blueprint of a toy. He would build a working model of the toy, and then they would make corrections to it or changes, and then ultimately decide if they wanted to move it to production or not. I went and got this book because this is really cool. So it's called Engineering and Empire. It's a book that came out last year, and it's all about the Kenner employees who made Star Wars toys. And then right there is my dad.
Oh, awesome.
And then I gave him a bunch of pictures that they used in the book from when he worked there. But yeah, it was like Star Wars and Reds baseball are kind of like in my DNA because those were the things that me and my dad like we bonded over everything. He was my best friend, but that was like our passions with Star Wars and Reds baseball. So it's something that I grew up with, and then now both of my kids are super into. My wife actually is a big Star Wars fan because her family were fans growing up. So it's like we're a total Star Wars family. But as a kid, yes, it was very cool. I had all the toys,
do you still
prototypes.
Have all now?
No, I sold my whole collection when I became a full-time comic. I had some credit card debt, and I needed a little bit of a cushion from quitting the day job because I wasn't getting booked consistently right out of the gate. So I sold my entire Star Wars collection to one guy who, when he found out that my dad worked for Kenner, flew to my parents' house from New York, and he bought everything that I had.
Wow. Do you regret that now?
No, it's weird. Again, I don't want to sound corny, but like I look back and I sold it to sort of get a jump start on like my dream.
Better yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's probably worth more money, but I didn't get taken, then like I knew what it was worth at the time, and I got a fair price for it at the time. And there's been things along the way now that I've been lucky enough to be able to buy back if I really wanted something that the visual of it held a certain memory. But what's really crazy is I've gotten to be friends with some people in the collecting industry for Star Wars toys, and these brothers live here in Cincinnati, and they were at a toy show about a year ago, and they sent me a picture of my dad's business card in a protective like baseball card case, like a real hard plastic case, like you don't want anything to happen to it case. And it was selling for $220 at a toy show. My dad's business card.
Did you buy it, or did you already have one?
No, I've got a whole box of them.
Okay, all right.
But like like I can't wrap my head around that.
That
You
somebody
know?
was holding on to that just because of the logo and whatever.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
That's awesome. Somebody asked, do you like the new Star Wars, or the old Star Wars?
You know, it's a pretty heated debate amongst big fans like myself. I like both of them, and I'm not saying that as a cop out, but here's my philosophy. Because like the guys that are my age, they hated the prequels that came out in the early 2000s, and then they hate the new ones, right? But my son is 9 years old, so this new set of Star Wars was his first experience of Star Wars in the theater to see it,
Yeah,
and those are his favorite movies. He likes the older ones, but those are his favorite, you know? And I think it's about what your age is when you see it, right?
yeah, I
Like we'll never
absolutely
be able to
agree.
top how we felt when we were
Right.
kids when we saw it.
You know,
So we're always going to hold those in higher regard. But my my kids, their Han, Luke, and Leia is Finn, Poe, and Ray. You know what I mean? And it's not my favorite, but that's their people. And if I can have that bond with them and they come out of the theater happy, then I'm happy.
right. Yeah, I agree. Like nothing's gonna top the first three for me as well. And like I think I've seen one or two other ones, and I haven't even watched the other ones because I'm like, it can't any better in my eyes. And to backtrack on, I had a large supply of all the figures and such too. And same thing, I sold them. For a good scenario, I actually sold them all and used it as a down payment on my first house.
See?
So yeah, so I don't regret it. I remember at one time I tried to get rid of them early on, like in high school, and my mom said, "No, She's like, I've got too much invested in this," because I remember her saying that how much that she is, bought, and not to just give it away type scenario. So she held on
Yeah.
to it, like at her house, like all through like college and such. And then I got married, and then literally that's when I sold it for a down payment.
Well,
So
I had a lot of this stuff. A lot of my stuff was it never was in packaging because they had like a company store that if, a product had a damaged package, they would basically take it out of the packaging, put it in like a Ziploc bag, and then sell it for pennies to employees.
okay,
So a lot of the stuff that my dad brought home was stuff because I was going to play with it, like, and he knew that. Um, what's really funny is that some of the vehicles that he worked on that were prototypes, they were considered garbage because he would make a model of it. They would mark it with like Sharpie, like we need to change this and this and this, and then it became garbage, and he'd bring it home, and then that's what I would really play with because it was garbage. And then those ended up being worth more than anything, like all the prototypes and what they call first shots.
yeah,
And my favorite story is when Return of the Jedi came out in 85, 83, and 83. It was supposed to be called Revenge of the Jedi, but they changed it at the last minute to be called Return of the Jedi. So they had already printed these big cardboard sheets that like the figure comes on that
okay,
said Revenge of the Jedi. They
all
were
right.
uncut and they were going to be used to get
Just
the
the cardboard
figures out.
backings, not
Just the
the
back,
got
right?
it.
No figure, no plastic bubble, just the
Interesting.
sheets. And so they became garbage because they changed the name of the movie, threw them in a dumpster. And my dad was a car guy, so he would grab like old cars and then restore them to like brand new and put them in like a car show and sell it and then start over. So he was very uh, mechanically inclined to like change our brakes and change our oil and stuff. So he took those free pieces of cardboard out to put down in the garage for when he would change the oil because he didn't want the oil to get on the garage floor. And those sheets sell for about $6,000 a piece right now.
Holy shit.
And we must have had 7 or 8 of them that he went through over time just
Wow.
to make sure oil didn't get on the floor in our garage.
And you have none laying around, obviously
Oh
now.
no, no,
No.
no, no! But in
Well,
weird ways, like the story is even better than having it. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah. Well, I feel like too, obviously, from a collector's point of view, like we didn't know that shit back then. Like we just opened it up, and started playing with it. We didn't know that. Hey, if you keep these in a package, you can sell them for. It's kind of like the people that had Bitcoin back when it was like 6 cents. You're like, this ain't gonna be shit. I'm gonna use it to go buy pizzas, and then realize that, oh wait, I I could have been a millionaire and got rid of all
That's
their
right.
shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
what can you do? Just keep forging ahead and living your dream, I guess. Another thing I was going to pivot on, that again with comedians finding other source of revenue streams is dry bar comedy. You were one of the first comedians, I think, that first run that did dry bar comedy. What, about 4 years ago or so?
Yeah, about 3 years ago. I was season three.
Oh,
So
I
I
thought you were
had
early on. Okay.
no, Patrick Keane, very funny comic and good friend of mine, had done one, and he had told me for a while, like, you should do one of these. And um, he was like, I don't know who's going to see it, but you get a really nice tape out of it, and that's kind of what I was wanting for you, right?
Right.
That's why I did it with you in mind, because you're always telling me like, I need a new tape, give me some new tape. And they,
Absolutely.
they shoot it, and it's beautiful. I mean,
Yeah,
they
it's
shoot it
amazing.
in 4K with like 13 cameras. I mean, it's insane. And so after I had seen how his looked and stuff, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this just to get a good tape out of it. And I went, and I had a great time. The people there were super nice and accommodating. The audience was fantastic, and I think a lot of it was luck in terms of the timing of when mine came out. But their Facebook page, initially you could only watch it through their streaming service,
Yeah.
and then they started chopping up people's specials into small clips and putting them on the Facebook page, in the hopes that people would see these little clips and want to go watch the full special on their service. And in that process, their Facebook page just blew up, like
Yeah.
right when my clips were coming out. And Brad Upton is still kind of the gold standard. I mean, he's got a clip that has like 100 million views on it or something insane.
Yeah.
But
Just nuts.
for me, not putting any not really putting a lot, not didn't put effort in it, but my expectations weren't very high of what could come from it. Um, and then it just took off, and my likes on Facebook and other social media just started going up. I started getting requests from comedy clubs that I'd never bothered sending my avails to, just to not have them waste their time to ignore it or tell me no. They were reaching out to me saying, hey, send us your avails, getting corporate gigs. And I mean, all this stuff was coming because of how much those clips were getting shared. And it's still happening 3 years later. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
They're about to shoot again in about 2 months. They
Yeah.
reached out to me to fill some more of their spots. So yeah, it's for comedians that are listening out there. It's if you can get in to do a set like that. First off, it's a clean set. You got it. It's a Mormon based company that you film, and it's a 20-minute set now. It used to be 40 minutes, so they kind of
Yep.
opened up that door. But they pay you residuals on the back end. So as long as you're still getting watched and getting hits, and I mean, so I assume you still get quarterly checks from them or yearly. I don't know how that works, but
Yeah. They send out quarterly reports letting you know how you did in the previous quarter. But not only that, but like I said, when mine came out, it was basically their service or the clips on Facebook. Now they have people's entire specials on Facebook, their entire specials on YouTube. There's some people who have them on
Amazon Prime,
Amazon, and
yeah,
you can hear them on satellite radio. So there's a lot of avenues. So like if you're a young comic and you can work clean, like, man, and you're really more concerned about getting your name out there and your material out there than you are like maximizing your profit potential on a special, then I would recommend it 1,000 times.
yeah. I bet a lot of comedians have been really excited to see those residual checks come this year
Yeah, for sure. That's
to
that's what
help
it is,
them.
man. And that's what if you're gonna do it, this is advice to other comics. If you're gonna do one, my recommendation is, don't think of it as like a 20-minute set. Think of it as like 4 or 5 minute sets, because they're going to
Yeah,
cut it up, and you're going to get way more run out of like clips that take off than you are your set as a whole. So the better you can piece together clips that are super funny when they're isolated and don't require you to see the entire set, probably the more views you're going to get.
Yeah, that's great advice. Also, I would say make it timeless.
Yeah.
Anything your material is, don't do anything topical. Just literally make it that you could be. I The way I kind of went into it with the comedians that I had booked on there, just trying to get that nice tape, was just I want every joke to be able to. And I said this, I want that joke to be. If you say it in 10 years from now, that it's still relevant. So because it was such a nice reel that you get, that you don't have to worry about getting a TV set or whatever. You can
Yep.
use that reel to get future work for 10, 20 years. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's that good, if you make that material timeless. Don't talk about, current politics or whatever, or even COVID or whatever. Don't even say what year you're in. I mean, it's just that, I think that's smart across the board for anything though,
Yeah.
for that.
And
So
relatable stuff, like
yeah.
if you look at some of the clips of people that have, tens of millions of views, it's like cats, dogs, kids,
Yeah.
just your job or yeah,
Zoltan's got his cat thing. You've got
yeah,
your garage sale
garage
bit that
sale.
everybody
Yeah.
knows, the garage sales. I mean, so it's yeah, perfect. Just keep it simple, stupid. Is that the whole thing? The kiss
Yeah.
theory?
And,
Yeah.
and it's weird, like, again, like I have weird benchmarks as a comedian of like things that I think are like cool when they happen. And one of the things, I was lucky to be able to work with like Mitch Hedberg and Greg Giraldo and Ron White and like some really like big name comics. And one of the things that I always loved was when they would do a show that people in the audience would yell out jokes that they want to hear. I just felt like as a comic, that is like the biggest compliment that you can pay someone, is to say like, I'm here to see you. I am a fan of you. And I know this joke already. It's not like a song that never gets old hearing it, like a joke that you already know the punchline to and you still want to hear. It's just like, I don't know. There's not a lot of things as a comic that I think are more flattering than someone saying like, I already know it, I just want to hear you say it.
Yeah.
And so like I never experienced that until Dry Bar, where I would be on stage and people would be like, do the garage sale bit, or like I would say a punchline and I could see someone mouthing the punchline with me. It was creepy, and it made me realize I need to write more. But at the same time, it was like super cool. You know what I mean? I
But
like
don't you
kind of
think
nerded
that'll
out
get
about it.
old after? I know what you're saying. Like now, in the moment, now it's great. But like, do you feel like, say, in 5 years, like it's like going to see Brian Regan and people yelling out "cup of dirt,"
Yeah,
and
or
you're
Hot
like,
Pockets or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, or yeah, the hot pockets for Gaffigan. It's or I think Bert Kreischer's going through that now with
with the
the
machine.
machine, and he
Yeah,
said, I've seen interviews with him saying that, like, I will never not do that bit. And I was like, you say that now, but eventually, I feel like you're going to get to that point where, I mean, Jesus, like you're gonna get tired of doing it. My thoughts are like, why don't you just run a preview reel of while everybody's sitting there watching, and then run those like the hot pockets that
yeah,
it's like, hey, and even say this, I'm not doing this bit tonight, but this is just for you at this event or whatever.
yeah.
It's a good idea, I think, for that aspect. But
The late John Witherspoon, rest in peace. He when he would walk out on stage, he would do all of his famous quotes from like Friday
yeah,
and Boomerang and stuff like that. He would walk out on stage, not hello, not it's good to be here, it's take the mic, don't
bang
nobody
bang,
go in the bathroom for 25, 35 minutes, and it was hilarious because it was like he knew they were going to yell it out. He knew
yeah.
they wanted to hear it. Let's get it out of the way. You're happy, and now we can go on with the show.
And I'm sure you said it just like that too. All right, we get this shit out of the way here. Like
Yeah, he
nobody
did.
yell this shit out during my
Yeah,
set. Let's get on to the new shit now. So
that's right.
yeah. Oh man. So where do you see? Like, I mean, you've done so much in your career. I feel like I've known you long enough that you're in a comfortable spot, which is great with your stand up and all your other revenue streams and such. That that you like. You're just doing great. So what is the next step for Josh Sneed? Like where do you see yourself 5-10 years from now as a comedian, as far as moving forward in your career? What's your zenith? Like what's the, hey, this is my goal, my end game of just doing this. And if I can get this, I'd be happy. And then just doing whatever else, on the side.
Well, I mean, there's things I would obviously love to do. Like I would love to continue to build an audience just from doing stand up. I mean, I made a conscious decision a long time ago to sort of put my roots down in the Cincinnati area, Northern Kentucky right now. But, part of that was, having a wife and children that I wanted to give them a certain kind of lifestyle and be close to my parents and my wife's parents, and the ease of traveling to the clubs that I play the most often out of the Midwest is a lot easier than from New York or LA, and the cost of living is so much better. So with having that decision of like wanting that sort of lifestyle, there's also a lot of things that I knew that would make it tougher for me to continue to progress to some of the higher levels in the industry. And I was okay with that, especially in these years where my kids are as young as they are. My son's 9, my daughter's 4, and I wanted to be here, to coach Little League and to make sure that I didn't miss any big milestones or their first day of school or whatever. And so I've come to grips with that if it doesn't get any better than it is right now, I'm super happy. And honestly, that mindset came when I saw Dave Chappelle on Inside the Actors Studio. He was talking about the day that he let his parents know he wanted to be a comedian, and they obviously, they're college professors, so the thought of like doing comedy for a living, it didn't seem like a safe bet, and they said, there's my neighbors. What's up? What's up, Putnams? But he basically, his response to them when they said, well, will you give it up if you're not successful? And he says, well, that depends on what your definition of success is. He says, if a teacher makes $35,000 a year and I can make $35,000 a year being a comedian, I'd rather be a comedian than a teacher. And I just felt like that like really hit me, because when you get into this business and decide that you want to make a living out of it, like the conversation is always like getting your own show or getting your own special or selling out theaters. You know what I mean? It's always like the absolute top thing that you can do in comedy, but there's not always a lot of conversation around like you can have a career like mine, make a really good living, be relatively unknown, and have a super happy life like doing comedy.
Yeah, and that's most of the comedians. There's 3,000 plus comedians out there, so yeah, they all can't be the Gaffigans and the Burrs and the like you said, like basically all those names that were at the Chappelle show. So yeah, there's plenty of ways to do this. And same with me. I look at it as like I run just my little comedy agency in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I feel like I'm blessed and to be in my little pond, and it's great. So
yeah, when you can get past like the jealousy of like seeing your friends get things that you had sort of like dreamed about, like when you can get past that and be like genuinely happy for them and not focus on all the things that you don't have, I feel like it's a real game changer. You know what I mean? And like, Jimmy Pardo, he made an analogy one time on his podcast that also like really hit me when he's like, too many times on like the ladder of success, like you're constantly looking at who's up above you, like you're trying to climb and you're seeing what's in front of you, and people don't take enough time to like look down and see how far that they've come. And for me, like that's like a big deal, like to know, like to get from open micer to get from talking about doing stand up to actually get on an open mic, to actually do enough open mics to become an MC, to get enough MC work to become a middle, to become a headliner, to get on TV. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you think about the people who went from just talking about doing stand up to where we are, like it's successful now. So to answer your question, if I can keep building the brand and keep getting fans from just stand up and maybe do theaters or get another special out there, that would be awesome. And if not, I'm super happy.
That's awesome, man. Well, this is the point of the time on the check drop where we're going to wrap this show up here shortly. I'll let you wrap it up however you want. If you want to tell like maybe the best gig you've ever had or the worst gig or anything else you want to chat about.
The worst gig I ever had, it's actually a track on my last album. It's 100% true story, but basically, when I first started doing stand up, I didn't realize that there's shows you're not supposed to take. So, this woman from the Dayton Dragons, the single A baseball team for the Reds, asked me to come do stand up at a sold out Dragons game. I was like, this is great. I'm going to play in front of 10,000 people. And I've only been doing this 6 months.
Is this
Well,
like during like before the game or after the game or like
between innings?
okay?
So they wanted.
Right.
I can't believe you've never heard the story. So they wanted me to
I have
dress
not.
up like an umpire.
Oh boy.
And the plan was to that they were going to have the real umpire come in the dugout, and then they were going to make an announcement that the umpire is a stand-up comedian. He's going to do some jokes for you. And then I would come out of the dugout dressed like him and do jokes at home plate. Well, right before I was supposed to go out, he makes a terrible call at a play at the plate and gets into an argument with the star player for the home team and ejects him and the manager out of the game. The inning ends. He comes in the dugout and they introduce me, and everyone hates this guy
because they think you're him.
Yeah, that's the thing. I got the mask on and everything. So they're like, they think that I'm the guy who just threw out the star player and the manager, and that I'm going to try to get them to laugh at my jokes. Like they weren't having it. It was an absolute nightmare. And there's a bunch of layers to it that if people want to hear it, they can go listen to the first track on my last album. But yeah, that was the worst gig I've ever had, and I learned at an early stage of my career, you don't have to say yes to everything.
Well, what year into how many years into comedy was that gig?
6 months.
6 months.
It was not even 6 months. I started.
So you only probably had like
98, and
7 or 8 minutes of material probably at that point.
Barely. It was terrible.
That's hilarious. Oh man, yeah. That's so funny. Well, Josh, man, I can talk to you all day, man. I love you, and like I appreciate you coming on and being a part of the Check Drop, and continued success for you. And I'm sure you're gonna do great, and take care of that lovely family of yours. And if there's anything else you'd like to plug on the way out here, feel free to do so. And
no, man, I love you too. It's always a treat to hang out with you and talk to you. I hope we can do it in person soon. If anybody cares, then there's like this little thing, a little social media. So just whatever social media you're on, I'm probably on there too. MySpace, LinkedIn.
Definitely LinkedIn.
I'm on there. So just look me up.
At Josh Sneed for Twitter and Instagram. So take a peek. Go follow him. Go heckle him on the candy.
Yeah. Come to Airheads or Mentos Twitter page. Yeah, it'll be me replying to you. Yeah, awesome, and if you need me to run it for you, I'll run it for you. If you need T-shirts, I got your T-shirts. I got all kinds of free time now.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks again, man. If anybody out there listening or watching needs a comedian for any event, if you would like to book Josh even for a corporate event or a college, feel free to hit us up at summitcomedy.com. I appreciate everybody listening and or watching. And Josh, you have a great evening. Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday.
Thanks,
Later.
Chuck. See you, buddy.
All right. Bye.